Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I welcome you to the 24th lecture of the course Management Organizational Policies and Practices. Before we start with 24th lecture, I'll give you a recap of my last lecture, which was upon the ethical behavior, the fairness perceptions in the organization, how they are formed, what are the consequences of the fairness perceptions, what are the different determinants of the ethical behavior, and what are the different outcomes of these fairness perceptions and ethical behavior. So we had a discussion on what is meant by ethical behavior at work. We discussed the important factors that shape ethical behavior at work, and we discussed a combination of those factors, such as the individual factors, the organizational factors that influence the ethical behavior, the supervisory role, the boss role in determining the ethical behavior, and we also discussed the role of the co-workers in determining the ethical behavior at work. We had a discussion also on the organizational culture, how it determines the ethical behavior of work, and how the boss influences the organizational culture, or how the top management influences the organizational culture, and how that determines the ethical behavior at work. Then we also had a discussion, and we also described at least 4 specific ways in which management can influence ethical behavior at work. We discussed a number of ways in which the managerial influence occurs, and we also discussed a quiz from the Wall Street Journal that discussed the implications of all the different factors that determine or that lead to ethical compromises. And then we also had discussed that what is misconduct when the employees they do not follow the code of conduct of the company, or they behave unethically, or they fall under the misconduct, how they need to be disciplined, what are the different policies initiatives that should be taken to discipline the employees who are entering into the misconduct. We also saw that that the organization, it needs to have a clear-cut policy on how it has to discipline the employees who are entering into the misconduct, and how those employees they can be disciplined by incurring the minor and major penalties, and how these penalties they need to be aligned with the severity of the misconduct that has occurred. If the misconduct is very severe, then the huge penalties need to be imposed, and so on. And we also discussed that if the individual is entering into a misconduct, and how the system of penalties should be progressive. It should start off with an oral reminder giving to the subordinate, and it should increase in the severity. Right. Then we also had a discussion on the different justice perceptions, and how these different justice perceptions are related to the employee outcomes, and different justice perceptions are related to the different employee outcomes. We discussed that why is it important to create, and why is it important to treat the employees fairly. And I gave you an example of a figure that was stating that how the different perceptions in hotel industry, the research that was conducted in a hotel industry, I showed you the results of that research that was conducted in that hotel industry, and it showed that how the different justice perceptions are leading to the different distinct outcomes. Then we saw that what are the different steps that you should need to follow as an organization or as a manager in order to discipline the employees. Then we saw that what are the employee dismissals, when we dismiss employees, why we dismiss employees, and we also saw in relation to this the wrongful discharge, the difference between the dismissals, the wrongful discharge, the termination at will, and layoffs. We did these 4 different concepts in our last lecture, right? And it's important for you to have a good understanding of what are the differences between all these different concepts, right? What are the different steps that should be taken to initiate each concept, why one concept, what differentiates one concept from the other, and what are the implications of the differences between these concepts, and how they should be procedurized, and how they should be initiated and procedurized, right? And after the layoffs, then we did that what are the alternatives available to the organization to layoffs, right? And And then we also had a discussion about the termination interview, and we also had a discussion about the exit interview, that what is the importance of these two, how the termination interview should be conducted, what should be the contents of the termination interview, how the exit interview, what is the importance of conducting an exit interview, and what should be the contents of that exit interview, right? And in relation to the fairness, we also discussed the importance of using the fair and ethical policies by the organization right from the beginning till the end. In all its employment practices, the organization needs to use the fair and ethical practices because they are the signals that the employees or the potential employees are receiving about the organization in terms of the fairness that the degree of the fairness that the organization has, right? So these were all the related and important concepts that we discussed in our lecture on ethics and justice and the fair treatment, and how we have to discipline the employees, how we have to deal with the employees, and how their perceptions are formed vis-a-vis the ethical stances and ethical behaviors, and how they need to deal with the ethical dilemmas that they can face, right? So for today's lecture, we are going to have a discussion on the business level strategies, right? We'll be mainly discussing the Porter's strategy clock. Then we'll be moving to the integration strategies. We'll also discuss the diversification strategies and the intensive strategies that the organization or that the strategic business units they can use. So first, to start with, before discussing what are the different strategies that the business unit levels they can adopt, we need to know what we mean by a strategic business unit, right? Or what constitutes a strategic business unit, right? So let's try to conceptualize the strategic concept of the strategic business unit on the basis of what distinguishes one strategic business unit from another strategic business unit. So a definition of a strategic business unit, if we see, is that it's distinct external market for goods or services that is different from another SBU. So in one SBU or strategic business unit, you classify it, the two SBUs, on the basis of the external markets of goods or services that those SBUs have. If each product and each geographical branch is considered to be an independent SBU, such immense variety of competitive strategies for a single organization would create a lack of focus and inefficiency. So that is the outcome of the definition of the SBU that I just told you. As per this, if we start regarding, so there is a dilemma that we are facing here, right? That if we start regarding each SBU, we differentiate between the two SBUs on the basis of the goods and services they are dealing in, then there will be unlimited number of SBUs that an organization would be having, right? And it will be difficult to pursue and to build and to pursue the overall corporate strategy of the organization, and it will be difficult for all these organizations, for all these SBUs to be aligned with the overall organizational strategy, and it will be difficult to consolidate their business initiatives, because then they would be dealing with a lot number of goods and services, and to classify them on the basis of the goods and services they are dealing in would be it might make the total number of SBUs innumerable in the organization and unmanageable in the organization. And then the concept of the SBU is important in properly reflecting the diversity of products and markets that actually exist. On the other hand, right? On the other hand, it is also important that you distinguish between the different SBUs on the basis of the products and services they are dealing in, and on the basis of the markets that they are dealing in, right? So there is a there is a puzzle here. There is a riddle here how you have to go with it, right? One, you need to identify those SBUs, the different SBUs who are on the basis of their products, services and markets, and on the other hand, then the number may become innumerable. So there are two criteria that have been advanced to avoid this kind of pitfalls. One is external criteria, and if you follow this external criteria, then two parts of an organization, they should only be regarded as the same SBU if they are targeting the same customer types through the same sorts of channels and facing similar competitors, right? So as per this criteria, if the two SBUs or more than two SBUs who are competing, who are dealing with the same types of customers through the same sorts of channels and who are facing similar competitors as well, then they should be regarded as one SBU. Right? So, as per the internal criteria, two parts of an organization should only be regarded as the same SBU if they have similar products or services built on similar technologies and sharing a similar set of strategic capability. Right? So, again, two or more SBUs, they should be regarded as a single SBU if they are dealing on the basis of if these SBUs, they are employing the similar technologies and they also have the similar type of strategic capabilities. Right, so they should also be treated as one SBU. Right, so we have an external and the internal criteria. It's a combination of which shows that if there are two SBUs who are dealing with the organization, there are two or more SBUs. If they have the similar kinds of products or services, they are dealing with similar kinds of, they are dealing with similar customers. They have the similar competitors, right, and they use the similar technologies to form their products or services, and they also have their strategic capabilities are also similar, then they should be regarded as one SBU, right? So we have the example of Kodak here. Kodak has basically two types of SBUs if we divide it into according to its customer base, according to its competitors, nature of the competitors, according to its the products, the kind of technology it is employing, and according to the strategic capability. If we, on the basis of these external and internal criteria, if we distinguish between the different SBUs of Kodak, we'll classify them as the film-based strategic business units and the digital products-based strategic business units. The film-based units, they use that traditional technology, and the digital products, they use this digital technology. So they both are using the similar technology, the different technologies, and all the SBUs who are using the digital products, who are catering to that markets, who are catering to customers who are dealing with that, who want the digital products. They also have the similar competitors who are in the digital products, digital cameras and the digital products. They also have the similar competitors compared to the film-based products that have been offered by the other SBUs of the Kodak, and they have the competitors who are dealing also in the film-based products, and they have the customers who want the film-based products. So they all should be classified as one business unit, right? Then the basis of competitive advantage, the strategic clock, how the different organizations, they have a certain strategy. Different SBUs, they have different strategies on how they have to compete, right, and how they have to stand in the market, how they have to approach their customers, and how they have to make their position, how they have to stay competitive in the industry, how they have to gain their market share in the industry, which markets they have to target, what processes they have to use, which policies which they have to use, which strategy. Overall, we can say that the strategic business units, they also develop their own strategies. At the strategic business unit level, there is a strategy, and that strategy dictates on how the organization or how the strategic business unit has to do its business, right? So assuming that there are a number of providers, customers will choose which offering to accept on their perception of value for money. So of course, when it comes to the customers have a lot of choice. They have a number of providers of the services or the products, and they have to choose between those providers, and they will be going for those providers who provide them value for money, who provide them good product or good service, and that justifies the value for money that they are spending, right? So this consists of a combination of price and customer perceived product service benefits of each offering. There are then a number of the strategic clock that was given by the portal. It determines that, or it explains that there are a number of strategies that are available, or there are a number of different strategic options that are available to the different strategic business units, and there are different competitive strategy options that are available to you when you have to compete in the market. The first one is the no frills, the second one is the low price, then we have the hybrid strategy, then we have the differentiation strategy, and then we have the focus differentiation strategy. Then on the number 6, 7 and 8 of this clock are the strategies that Porter says they are destined for ultimate failure. So what is the difference between all these different strategies? What are their implications? Let's have a discussion on that in our next slides. Starting off with the price-based strategies, as we see in the strategic clock, 1 and 2, they are the 1 is the no frills and the 2 is the low price. So these both can be termed as the price-based strategies, because here the SPU is dealing on the basis of the price. Right, so route 1 is a no frill strategy, which combines a low price, low perceived product service benefits. So here in the goods, if you're familiar with the term given goods, or here in the target market is those customers who do not value the packaging of the product, or who do not value the design of the product, or who do not value the features of the product, but for them the functionality of the product, only the functionality of the product is important, and for them the most important is the price, right? So here, for this kind of consumers, the decision to buy a product is made only on the basis of price. They are extremely price sensitive customers, and they go only for the products that are available at the cheapest price, right? So this is no frill strategy, where there is nothing additional coming with the product. There are no attractions with the product that are coming, right? So the customers, they only value the price, right? So they only differentiate between the different suppliers on the basis of the price. So price is the key competitive issue in this kind of strategy. Here the emphasis on functionality over service, or more aesthetic issues such as design or packaging. So the aesthetic issues are nowhere. Customers are basically very price sensitive, and they make the decisions on the basis of the price, such as if we take the example of those low frill airlines or the no frill airlines, such as we have the Ryanair, it is a no frills airline. And we have the Southwest Airlines, which is another no frills airline. So in these airlines, what they do is that they are the Ryanair. It's a German airline, and it has really expanded its businesses a lot in a very short time period. And this airline, what it's doing is that it is not providing any. You just sit in the plane, and and you reach at the destination, and in the middle you do not get any food or anything served in the plane, right? And they charge you only the price of the of your travel, only the cost of the travel, but no other fringe benefits are available with this travel. No other such facilities are available with this travel, such as the food and the drinks and the snacks serving and things like that. And the customers, they are not facilitated extra, right? And so it's not, there are no privileges coming along, and you are of course not charged for those privileges. So there are many customers who are happy with this. They do not value that the paying extra and getting very expensive food in the airline served, right? So and if somebody wants the food on the airline, he can just make an order and get the food by paying right there in the airline, right? So these are the no frill airlines, and herein there are no additional benefits that are coming along, and you're only paying the cost for the service that you are getting for the functionality of the service, right? So here the functionality in the case of the airline is that you're traveling from one place to another place, and you do that and you pay value for that. So the customers, they have very low switching cost in this kind of market segments. So building customer loyalty is very difficult, because for the customers, they don't value the quality, they don't value the product, they don't value its designs, its features, etc. For them, the only motive to decide is the price. So wherever they will get the lower price, they will go there. They don't have this customer loyalty kind of thing here, and it's difficult to build the loyalties. Then the route 2 is the low price strategy, which seeks to achieve a lower price than competitors while trying to maintain similar perceived product or service benefits to those offered by the competitors, right? So here in what is happening is that again the price here, there is price consideration which is lower. You keep your costs low, and you you give provide the products or services to your customers of a certain value or of a certain level and at a lower price, right? So herein there are a number of pitfalls that are when you are competing on the basis of the price. You need to you can operate at low, you can be successful, you can use this low price strategy, and you can be successful in this low price strategy only when you can keep your costs low, right? Because if you are competing on the basis of the low prices, right, and your competitors, the price of your competitors' products are lower than those of yours, of course the customers are going to switch to your competitors, right? And as a result you are going to lose the market share, and you're going to it won't be possible for you to stay competitive, right? In order to keep the costs lower, you need to have either very deep pockets, or you should have the to keep supporting that that low cost strategy. But if you don't have the low cost base. So the most important thing that you need to have when you have to follow this low cost strategy is that you need to have a low cost base. So low cost base means that in whole the process of starting from the inbound logistics till the final service and delivery of the final product to the customers, whole the process that should be low cost. That should be low cost base. So whole the process, whole the mechanism that should be supportive of the low cost base. It's not that only one area or in one thing you are at low cost, and other areas and other things your costs are higher. Then you will be the overall costs, they won't be as low as maybe they are of your competitors, and then you won't be able to compete on the basis of low cost. So you need to have a low cost base to compete on the basis of this strategy, right? And when you're competing on the basis of low cost base, then there are certain pitfalls that are attached to it. One, you don't have the then ability to reinvest, because you are competing on the basis of low cost, your profit margins are lower, right? And as a result, you don't have the ability to reinvest in the product, to make the reinvestments. You have maybe having very little to make to reinvest, right? So in the long run, of course, the strategy, it cannot be followed without low cost base. So if you have a low cost base, only then you can keep going, and you can keep taking out some money and reinvesting it, because then you have the low cost base and you have a certain price, and then you can have a margin. Then the other one is the differentiation strategy, which is the route 4, which seeks to provide products or services benefits such as different from those of competitors, and that are widely valued by buyers, right? So here, unlike the previous strategies, which were the price-based strategies, here in the companies that try to compete basing on the differentiating their products from those of the customers, right? So here in how do they differentiate their products in the eyes of the customers? By including or by adding or by producing such features in their product which are valued by their customer and which are not available in the products of the competitors, or which are not there in the services of the competitors. So success of this strategy basically depends upon the identification of the strategic customers, right? That who will be the strategic customers if you want to bring a differentiated product to your market. Who will be your strategic customers, whether there are some strategic customers or not, whether there is somebody who wants what differentiated product you have brought into your market or not. If you have brought in some very differentiated product into the market, but there is no demand for that product in the market, there is no value for that product in the market, the customers do not need that, then that differentiation strategy will not work. It will be a failed strategy, right? So differentiation strategy will only work when you are bringing in something to the market which is also valued by the customers, and for that you need to identify that who your strategic customers are. Then it is also important to be clear who are the competitors. So broad-based market serving masses or narrow market, automobile mass market, automobile industry, wherein you have this generalized, or you have this broad-based differentiation, or you have the niche market, you're serving in the niche market, or where there is the niche differentiation, or the high price based differentiation, or premium price based differentiation, right? So there are these two types of differentiation strategies that the companies can have. One is the broad-based differentiation, wherein you are catering to a wider number of customer base, or there is this niche market wherein you are dealing with the with this differentiation, which is the high premium differentiation, which we'll be discussing in the next slides, right? And then we come to the route 3, which is the hybrid strategy. Because hybrid strategy is basically what you're doing here is that it is a combination of the price based strategy and the differentiation strategy. So here what the competitor, or here what the organization or the strategic business unit is trying to do is that it is competing on the basis of the lower price as well as the slightly better value of its product or service. So quality of the product is improved, and at a lower price you are offering that product. So it is basically a combination of the price based and the differentiation, broad-based differentiation strategy, the hybrid strategy, right? So that is why I discussed it at after the differentiation strategy, although it is route 3 in the strategic log, and the differentiation strategy is the route 4 on the strategic log. But I thought that you should be I should give you a concept of the differentiation strategies, and then we should discuss this hybrid strategy, so that then it is easier for you to understand that the what hybrid strategy does, or what it is. So it simultaneously seeks to achieve differentiation at a lower price than that of the competitors. And success of this strategy basically depends on the ability to deliver enhanced benefits to customers together with low prices, while achieving sufficient margins for reinvestment to maintain and develop the basis of competition. The hybrid strategy could be advantageous in the following circumstances. If much greater volumes can be achieved than competitors, then margins may still be better because of a low cost base, right? And if an organization is clear about the activities on which differentiation can be built, that is potential core competencies, it may then be able to reduce costs on other activities, right? So as I told you earlier, that the organizations, they must be able to know what their core competencies are, right? So if the organizations, they are aware what are their core competencies, then on the basis of that they can enter into this differentiation, they can build on this differentiation, and then they may be able to reduce their costs on other activities, right? And so herein what is happening is that it is a combination of the two types of strategies. Sometimes market what the organizations or the companies, they do is that they use it hybrid strategy as an entry level strategy. Otherwise, why would a company try to follow this kind of strategy, that is, it is offering a better quality good and service, and it is offering that at a lower price? So often the companies, when the market barriers are, when the entry barriers are higher, then the companies, they use this type of strategy as a way to enter the market and a way to capture the market share in the market. So that is what the Japanese automobile industry did, right? That is what they did. That is how they entered the German market. That is how they entered the US market, and then they slowly and steadily by implementing this hybrid strategy. So the cars that they offered, the automobiles that they exported into those countries, they were basically cheaper than the US local cars, and they were more reliable, and they were better quality. So as a result, they won the very huge amount of market share, and they are giving a very tough time to the US automobile manufacturers themselves, right? And their market share of the Japanese auto manufacturers, that has slightly slowly and they have grabbed more market share than the US manufacturers themselves, right? So this is that was by way of following this hybrid strategy. They offered their product at better quality and at lower price, and that was the entry strategy. that they adopted. Then when sometimes the firms they really enter the market, they capture the market share, they establish the customer loyalties, and then they can also move to the step route 4 on the strategy clock, right, by slightly increasing their price and keep continuing with the differentiation in the eyes of the customers of their products or services. So they also keep offering the differentiated features, but they also increase their price a little, and they enter into that differentiation regime in the strategy clock, right? So they use the hybrid strategy as an entry strategy in the market with established competitors to fill strategic gaps, right? Poorly captured global markets where they are there, then they use this kind of strategy and they enter such markets. The overall cost base is such that low margins, they can be sustained, right? So and those low margins can be sustained. For example, and you also can reinvest those low margins till the time you have really captured the market, and then a clear follow-through strategy has been considered after entry has been achieved, right? So you cannot go on with this strategy for a long time. When you are really established in the market, as I told you, then you see that what is going to be your follow-through strategy. Then in relation to the differentiation that we discussed, just as we saw that there are two price-based strategies. One is based on the very low prices and without the consideration of the quality of the product, and the other one is based on the also competing on the basis of the price at a certain level of quality of the product. And similarly, the differentiation strategies are also, one is the broad-based differentiation and the other one is the focused differentiation. So broad-based differentiation is you are differentiating your product and you are targeting a broader base of the customers for that product, and the focused differentiation is basically differentiating your target market. Here is a niche group, a niche sector, right? Very elite and very valued or very elite customers, right, who are ready to pay very high price, because this is what is happening here in this focus differentiation. You are offering very differentiated, very high quality features or designs or the products or services that are really valued by the customers, and you are offering them at a premium price, right? So and the customers, but they justify the value for money. They really value those product features for the price that has been asked. But this is only a niche market that is the customer in this kind of cases, such as the Morgan. If you are familiar, they are produced. They are manually manufactured by hand. They are manufactured. These are the cars and in the Germany, and maybe a very few 2-3 cars they are produced in a year, and they are much more costly than the other cars that are offered in the US market and the US industry, and the people have to wait even for years to get their orders, right? So they are basically they're serving the niche markets, and similarly there are other products such as the limousine, etc. They're also serving the niche market, right? Very high quality product features at very high price. So the focus differentiation raises some important issues. When you are following this kind of strategy, it might be difficult for you if it is a part of the organization strategy, because of course it involves a huge amount of resources that the organization, or huge amount of investments on the part of the organization. And then when it is the focus strategy, it also might be, the firm may also need to consider that it might be requiring a very specific type of strategic capabilities that are really specialized to the realization of this strategy. The competencies required might be very specialized in nature, and then you may not be able to deal with the other segments, or you may not be deal with the number of other products when you are having this niche target market as well, right? Because it may not be possible for you to gain economies of scope in such cases, right? And then the market situation may change such that differences between market segments may be rooted customers not for premium price. And then we have the failure strategies, which as we discussed, that they are under the route number 6, 7 and 8, and we see that these are the strategies that do not provide perceived value for money in terms of product features, price, or both, right? So they are not providing you the perceived value of money, not in any terms, neither in the product features, not in terms of the price, or both. So the root 6 is the suggests that the increasing price without increasing product service benefits to the customer. So that is what is happening in the root 6, that the company or the organization or the strategic business unit, it increases its price without increasing the product or service benefits. So the quality is remaining the same, but you're increasing your price further. And in such cases, these companies are prone to fail, because if your competitors, they do not follow you, they do not start a price war with you, and if they do not also increase their price, they keep their prices constant, they keep offering the similar quality, then of course the customers, they are trying to, they will definitely switch to the competitors, right, and you will be losing. Then the root 7 is involves the reduction in the product service benefits while increasing relative price. So this is the monopoly situations, right, under which what you're doing is that you are reducing the quality of the product and you're also increasing the relative. So in the monopolistic situations where the monopolies, they really are exploitative, so what they normally follow this kind of strategies where they are reducing further the quality of the product and they are increasing simultaneously the price of the product. And then the root 8 is characterized by reduction in benefits while maintaining price is also dangerous, though firms have tried to follow it. So it again results in the loss of share, because here what you're doing is that you are reducing the benefits of the product or the quality of the product while you are keeping the price the same, right? So it is again not a very profit oriented strategy. It is again prone to the loss, to a loss of the firm, and it depends upon the behavior of what the competitors do. Okay, so we discussed that in order to sustain the competitive advantage, the firm, there are a number of the price-based strategies, there are the differentiation strategies, and there is a situation of lock-in. So here we first discussed how the companies, they can sustain competitive advantage when they have these price-based strategies. When the companies, they're following these price-based strategies, as I explained to you earlier, then the companies, what they should do is that they must accept a reduced margin. Because of course they have to compete on the basis of the low cost, right? Therefore they cannot gain, or they cannot have very high margins, and the organization, it may be prepared to sustain and win a price war with competitors from deep pockets to sustain short-term losses or low cost base. Right, in the short term, if the organization or if a firm, it has it does not have a low cost base, right, and then it can but it has very deep pockets, then it can compete with its competitors, but that can only be in the short term, right? So you cannot keep on a price war. You will be run out of business if you start a price war but you do not have a low cost base. So an organization has cost advantages through organizationally specific capabilities, driving down cost throughout the value chain. So as I explained to you earlier, the organizations who are following this kind of strategy or this kind of route, they must be producing at low cost at all levels, such as the low cost raw materials. There should be efficiency in their processes, they should have access to the low cost labor locations, they should have distribution cost advantages, and they should be low cost by outsourcing, right? So wherever in their value chain, in their value network, if they are expensive somewhere, right, or if they're expensive compared to their competitors, they actively, vigilantly need to make the analysis of their value chain with that of their competitors. So they need to see the value network with the whole value network. They need to carefully analyze, right, in which they should see their customers, their competitors, their suppliers, their distributors. So they need to see the value network, and they need to see that wherein they are expensive compared to their competitors, and wherein they can outsource, and wherein outsources can be a cheaper option, and that can reduce to their cost base. So when it comes to low cost base, it has to be at all levels, and then it would be a low cost base. Then the sustaining the differentiation based advantage. There are different conditions to sustain advantage through differentiation, right? And these include the
creating the difficulties for imitation, right? When you're differentiating on the basis of a certain product or service, and you can sustain the competitive advantage only if you can sustain that differentiation. But if you cannot sustain that differentiation, then the basis of your competitive advantage, they will also be gone, and you won't be able to sustain that competitive advantage. So for the sustainability of the competitive advantage, as we discussed earlier, there are a number of issues that your strategic you should be able to realize, and you should know that what are your core competencies, and how your strategic capabilities and your core competencies, they should be rare, they should not be easily available, right? And they should not be imitable. So if you have certain competencies, or you have certain resources on the basis of which you are creating differentiation in the eyes of your customers, but those resources or those competencies that are easily imitable by your competitors, you have a certain technology, you have a certain machinery, right? Or you have anything that is giving you competitive advantage over your competitors, but then that is imitable, and your competitor can also start import that machinery and start production on that. So then that is not a sustainable base of competitive advantage, and that will be gone immediately. So in order to sustain the competitive advantage when it comes to differentiation, the challenge for the firm is that its strategic competencies, or its core competencies, or its strategic capability, it should not be imitable, and it should be rare, it should not be easily available, right? And it should not be perfect mobile, it should have imperfect mobility, such as the brand and the reputation, and it should be a lower cost position. It should have the reinvestment ability to reinvest and to sustain, right? So even in the basis of the differentiation strategies, we see that lower cost position is important, right? So it is not a lower cost is not important only for the firms who are competing on the basis of the low cost, but they are also important for the firms who are competing on the basis of the differentiated products, because customers are overall sensitive to the price. So if they are getting a differentiated product at a price that is lower than that of the competitor, then they will they can switch to that. So that is an important issue here as well. Then the delta model and lock-in, which says that the organizations, they achieve this lock-in when they become industry standard. When an organization becomes industry standard, it becomes it enters into this situation of the lock-in. So under lock-in, the size or market dominance in the eyes of the others, that is huge, right? Or the company can also have the first mover advantages, such as we have the example of the Microsoft, which moved very early into the market, and it captured huge market share, right? So it has a huge market dominance, it has a very huge size, and as a result of that, the other firms or the other competitors in the industry, they start considering it as a market standard, right? And it also gained these first mover advantages. As a result of that, even though Microsoft's products, they are not as per the quality or as per the standard, they are not termed as the best products. There are other competitors as well who are giving better output and better products, but still Microsoft is considered the industry standard, right? So it has achieved the position of this lock-in, right, because of its size, its market dominance, and its first mover advantage that it has reaped. Okay, so the competitive strategy in the hyper-competitive conditions, we see that hyper-competitive conditions are those conditions in which the environments are are very turbulent, the changes are very fast changing, and the product life cycles are very shorter, and the business environments are really uncertain, and there is an increased level of competition. So these are the characteristics that show the hyper-competitive environment. In such conditions, in slower-moving environments, on the other hand, when there is not much competition, there is no much increase in competition, the environments are relatively stable. Therein every company, it has its own market share, and it keeps on moving with that market share. There is not much turbulence in the environment, right? And the state of equilibrium is maintained, right? But in the hyper-competitive environments where there is a lot of competition and there is a lot of turbulence, it might be difficult for a company who has achieved a competitive advantage. It might be difficult for the company to sustain a competitive advantage, because in this kind of environments, there is the technology shifts are very fast and the product life cycles are very fast. So the company who has the competitive advantage, who has a certain strategic capability and who has a core competencies in one area, and as a result of that, it is it has sustained, it has achieved a competitive advantage, it may not be able to sustain that competitive advantage because that core competency, it might become obsolete, and that the product in which it has a speciality, it might become obsolete because the product life cycles are shorter, and new technology and innovations, they are very fast in this kind of environment, and as a result it might be a challenge for the companies to sustain their competitive advantage. There are a number of integration strategies such as the forward, backward and horizontal integration. Let's discuss them, what they are and what are their implications. Forward integration is when you are trying to gain the ownership or increased control over your distributors or retailers. Why do you want to do that? Because there are certain guidelines when you enter into this forward integration. One, there is a possibility that your current distributors, they're very expensive, they are unreliable, or they are incapable of meeting the firm's needs. Second possibility is that there is availability of quality distributors is limited, and then when the firms, they compete in an industry that is expected to grow markedly, and it finds that, or it feels that it has huge prospects that if it starts if it enters into the forward integration and develop that distribution possibilities itself in its own inbuilt, then it can achieve more markets at less exploitative, then it won't be exploited as well by the distributors, right, and it can grow more rapidly. So the organizations also, for this, the organizations, they need to have the capital and the human resources which are needed to manage this, because it's again a new line of business, the replacing your distributors and doing that yourself. So you should make sure that you have enough capital and the human resources to do that. Then advantages of stable production are high, right, and present distributors, they have high profit margins, they are exploiting you and you want to get rid of that. Then you enter into this forward distribution, forward integration, and then we have the backward integration, wherein you seek ownership of the increased control of our firm's supplies. So here basically on your value chain, you're moving one step back. You're getting the raw materials that you were getting from your suppliers, now you are thinking of producing those raw materials also yourself, right? Again, you enter into backward integration when you feel that your suppliers are expensive and the number of suppliers is small and number of competitors is large, and the suppliers, they're more in the monopolistic terms and more in exploitative terms. And then when there is high growth in the industry sector, and you feel that if you enter into that strategy, you go into backward integration, and then you can really increase your profit margins, and you have huge margins to produce in there. So the capital and human resources, again, you have to manage this new business, and there are advantages of stable prices, they are important, and your present suppliers, they have high profit margins. So you have similar kinds of reasons to enter into forward and backward integrations. Then we have the horizontal integration, which is the seeking ownership or increased control over competitors, right? So herein what happens is that when you enter into horizontal integration, when you see that you can have a huge amount of benefits by gaining the monopolistic characteristics, right? And when you also know that there are increased economies of scale you can reap by way of the horizontal integration, and that can give you a major competitive advantages. There are a number of intensive strategies that the firms use, such as the market development, the product development, the market penetration, and we also have the consolidation strategies here. So why are these strategies termed as intensive? Because these strategies, they require intensive efforts to improve a firm's competitive position with existing and new products and markets, right? So what the firm here is trying to do is that it is trying to improve its competitive position by way of a number of strategies, such as the entering into the new markets, or remaining in the existing market with the new products, or entering a new market with the new product, entering a new market with the existing product. So there are a combination of the possibilities that the firm can use, but it really needs to make some intensive efforts to make this kind of strategies come true. Under consolidation, what happens is that it is a part of the restructuring process. We know under it what the firm does is that it reduces its operations, it's just as the name indicates. So wherein when there is a market recession or demand for your particular product, it has fallen short, and as a result you need to liquidate your certain operations, and that would generate sales or to avoid bankruptcy, right? So you consolidate your operations, you sell out some of your products that are not making sales, for whom the price has the demand has fallen and that are not making any good sales. So to avoid bankruptcy, and what you do is that you consolidate. And then the market penetration, it is a strategy in which what you do is that you are seeking increased market share for present products or services in present markets through greater marketing efforts. So you keep on operating with the same products in the same markets. So there is existing product and existing market in case of market penetration, but you are trying to increase your market share. When you enter into market penetration, when you feel that your current markets, they are not saturated and you can increase your market share in the current markets, your customers, they are not using the products at the same rate as that it can be. So you expect that you can increase the sales of your products to the existing customers, right? And then there is increased economies of scale provide major competitive advantages. And you know that if you keep on producing the same product and you try to increase your customer base in the existing market, and you try to increase your number of sales to the existing customers by way of economies of scale, you know that economies of scale have huge advantages in terms of the cost, etc., right? And you want to reap those advantages, so you make the strategy of market penetration. So mostly how do the companies do it? That is by way of advertisement. They spend a lot of advertisement to create customer loyalty and to create to increase their customer base in the same products, without entering into new markets. Then the market development is where you introduce present products or services into new geographical areas, right? So herein what you are doing is that you are entering into new markets with your existing products or services. So when you enter into market development is when you see that there are some new channels, more reliable channels of distribution, they are available, and they can take your products to the new markets, and there can be more avenues for your product in new markets, right? So then the firm is also very established and very successful in its products or services in the existing markets, and it expects that then on the basis of the brand and the image that it has created for its product or services in the existing market, it will be easier for the firm to tap the new markets as well. So when of course there are unsaturated and untapped markets available, then you have the avenue, the potential to enter into those markets and do your business there. Then the capital and human resources that are necessary to manage the expanded operations that are also there, then you enter into this kind of strategies. And when the basic industry and rapidly becoming global, then you enter into this kind of enter into market development. And the product development is when you're seeking increased sales by improving present products or services or developing new ones. So you are developing the product, right? So the products which are in the maturity stage of the life cycle, then you enter into product development. You need new product because the existing products, their life cycle is expiring. When competes in industry characterized by rapid technological developments, right? And you know that your current technological based product is becoming obsolete, so you need to develop your product. Then major competitors, they are offering better quality products at comparable prices, then you need to do this product development. And you have competing in high growth industry, and strong research and development capabilities are there with you, and you want to utilize them and enter into the new product development. Then there are a number of diversification strategies that are available. One is the concentric diversification, conglomerate diversification, and the horizontal diversification. So overall, the diversification strategies, they are becoming lesser popular as the organizations, they're finding it more difficult to manage diverse business activities, right? You need to have a number of human resources, you need to have a number of capital, and then it might be you need to have a very strong and good leadership to manage this kind of diversified products or diversified services, right? So it is an increasing challenge, and we know that a few huge conglomerates, they failed and they consolidated in a few products because they could not meet the challenges, or they could not meet the successes that they were expecting in this diversification, right? And the related diversification is when you are entering into into similar products or services, right? So you're adding the new products, but they are similar to your existing line of business, such as Procter & Gamble and Unilever. They deal with a range of consumer goods. They are all related consumer goods. So what they do is that they do so by way of forward and backward integration to diversify, right? So they start producing the raw materials themselves, and they start entering into the distribution channels and the services, etc. And by way of this forward and backward integration, they are entering into this related diversification, where their similar capital and similar human resources and similar expertise are used in producing the related products. So therefore you can use the economies of scope. So the concept of related diversification is basically based on the economies of scope, that when the firms they try to produce the similar products, who will use the expertise of the existing human resources by utilizing those expertise, and so that their costs, they also do not increase, and they already have the competencies, they have the resources to produce that product. And then that is why so the main advantages of the relating diversification comes from the economies of scope. Such as the car manufacturers, what they did was that they entered into this forward integration by starting the repairs and services, but they failed because it is, after all, not that easy to enter into the synergies. To gain the synergies are gained, they are generated when due to the economies of scope, because this concept of related diversification is it is built upon the economies of scope, right? And the synergies are generated when this phenomenon of economies of scope comes into play. But when those synergies are not generated, then the diversification, it can be a big mess for the company to manage, right? And there is no guarantee of enhanced performance when it comes to the related diversification. Their good relationship with distributors and retailers, they sometimes might be more beneficial, and they might be more handy, and they might be more manageable for the companies sometimes. So you cannot guarantee that you will increase your profits and your market share when you are entering into related diversifications, although there are a number of other motives for the firms to enter into related diversification as well, such as they want to reduce their they want to share their risk, and they want to reduce like putting all the eggs in one basket. So you're producing entering into the related products, and as I told you that the markets for some of your products that are maturing and that are dying, that you enter into the related diversification, and you want to keep to reap the benefits of the forward and backward integration. That is why you are entering into this related diversification. So there are certain guidelines for the related diversification, such as when a firm competes in new or slow growth industry, adding new or related products, it increases the sales of the current products, and new and related products that are offered at competitive price, and the current products are in decline stage of the product life cycle, and there is a strong management team. Then we have the unrelated diversification, where you are adding new and unrelated products or services. So when you firms enter into this conglomerate diversification, that is when the sales are declining and the profits are declining, capital and managerial talent to compete successfully in a new industry that is there, and then the existing markets for the present products, they are saturated, right? So they are the conditions for when firms enter into this conglomerate diversification, right? But as we discussed earlier, that the conglomerate diversification, it is difficult for the firms to manage, and they really need to have this strong team management and the leadership management skills, and they need to have the resources in the diversified areas, because here the economies of scope, they are limited. The synergies are not, because in the related diversification, the synergies are created through the related diversification. So our research indicates that moderately related diversification, that leads to the highest performance, and when the diversification is highly unrelated, then the relationship to the performance declines, right? And so Why? Because as I told you that the entire phenomenon of this diversification is based on the economies of scale and the synergies that are generated through the economies of scope. So with this we come to an end of today's lecture, wherein we discussed the different strategies that are available to the strategic business units when it comes to the competition with their competitors in the market, and how they can generate the competitive advantage basing on the different strategies in the market, and how they can sustain those competitive advantages, right? And what are the different challenges to sustaining those competitive advantages that the firms can have, right? Then we also had a discussion on the different diversification strategies and on different intensive strategies that the firms they can have, and how and why they choose between those different strategies. So see you again. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Thank you very much. Allah Hafiz.